Hey guys, welcome tonight. I'm glad you're here with me. Before we begin, I want you to make sure your window is closed and your door is locked. This story is meant to carry you into a calm sleep, and I don't want anything to disturb you. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories are born in the quiet hours of pain, when we least expect it, when our hearts are fragile, and when someone's gentle voice reaches us like a soft light in the dark. Now, as you let your head rest gently on the pillow, I want you to relax your shoulders, take a deep breath, and know that you're safe here. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story, my story. I never thought I would be the kind of woman to sit awake at midnight, listening to the hum of the refrigerator in a silent house, wondering if love could ever find me again. But that's where life had placed me. A widow at 32, living in a small town in the USA, in a house that still carried his scent, his laughter, his ghost in every corner. The evenings were the hardest. The sun would set behind the maple trees outside my window, painting the sky with soft pink and gold, and I would wait for a voice that would never come back home. Sometimes I would sit on the porch with a blanket around me, rocking gently in the wooden chair he had built, listening to the cicadas sing. The silence always seemed louder at night. One night, as I scrolled absent-mindedly on my phone, trying to distract myself from the ache in my chest, I found something, an online support group for people who had lost their partners. My hand hovered over the join button, my heart beating faster than it should. Part of me resisted, afraid of being vulnerable with strangers, but another part, the lonelier, quieter part, craved a connection, so I joined. The group wasn't large, maybe 20 people. They shared stories, memories, little struggles about facing the day. The first night, I only read, not posting anything, just watching their words float across the screen. But then a message appeared that caught me. It's okay if today you only manage to breathe. Sometimes that's enough. The username was simple, Quiet Lake. The words touched me in a way I couldn't explain. They were gentle, not pushing, not demanding, just reminding me that survival itself could be seen as progress. I didn't reply, not that night, but I bookmarked the message in my mind. The next evening, after making myself a cup of chamomile tea, I went back, I read more, and I saw Quiet Lake posting again. His messages weren't long, but they felt steady, like someone holding out a hand. Something in me stirred, something that had been buried under grief. As you're listening to me now, I want you to relax your mind. Let go of the noise of the day. Imagine holding a warm mug in your hands, steam rising slowly, and a soft voice reaching across the quiet hours to comfort you. That's what his words felt like. One night, I finally gathered courage and typed, "Hi, I'm new here. My name is Amelia. It's been a year since I lost my husband, and I don't know if I'll ever feel whole again." The screen blinked with replies, kind, encouraging words, but one stood out. "Welcome, Amelia. Wholeness doesn't mean forgetting. Sometimes it means carrying the love forward, piece by piece." Quiet Lake. I stared at those words for a long time. I could almost hear a voice behind them, calm and reassuring. Something about the way he wrote felt safe. Over the weeks that followed, I kept visiting the group. Sometimes I posted, sometimes I only read, but each time Quiet Lake seemed to be there. He would write about his own struggles. He had lost his fiancée 2 years ago. His words carried grief, yes, but also strength, like someone learning to breathe again after being underwater. And slowly, gently, I felt something shift in me. As you let this story sink into your heart tonight, I want you to close your eyes and picture a quiet lake under the stars. The water still, the night air cool, and a voice speaking softly across the silence. That's how I imagined him. Someone steady, someone patient, someone who understood. Days turned into weeks, and soon I noticed myself waiting for his messages. I didn't admit it at first, but a small part of me began to look forward to them, like a little lantern glowing in the dark. One night, I wrote him privately. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard, but I finally pressed send. Hi, I just wanted to thank you. Your words help more than you know. I expected nothing, maybe a short, polite reply, but what came was longer. Hi, Amelia. Thank you for saying that. Some nights, I still feel like the world forgot me, but knowing my words reach someone makes it feel less heavy. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. That was the night everything changed. As you drift closer to sleep, let me whisper this truth. Sometimes healing doesn't arrive like a thunderstorm. It comes like a quiet voice in the dark, reminding you that you're not alone. That night, I stayed awake longer than I should have, typing back and forth with him. We didn't talk about big things at first, just the weather, favorite books, the comfort of tea before bed. But beneath it all was a gentle current, something unspoken, like two souls recognizing each other in silence. I went to bed that night with something new inside me. Not love, not yet, but a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Life has a way of surprising us, even in the darkest hours. Healing doesn't ask us to rush. It asks us to take small steps, to breathe, to listen, and to open our hearts when a gentle light appears. Tonight, remember this: even broken hearts can begin to glow again. And as I closed my eyes that night, I didn't know it yet, but my journey with Quiet Lake was only beginning. Sometimes love doesn't begin with fireworks. It begins with a single message in the dark, a few gentle words that reach a heart too tired to hope. Now, before we go on, I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Let your head sink softly into the pillow. Release the weight of the day and know that in this moment you are safe, calm, and cared for. If your window is still open or your door unlocked, take a moment to secure them so nothing interrupts this story as it carries you toward rest. After that first private message, everything shifted between us. I didn't even notice it happening at first. How one message led to another. How one night turned into many. We talked in small, tender sentences, words meant for quiet hours when the world was asleep. His name, I learned, was Daniel, but in my heart, he was still Quiet Lake, because that's how I first knew him: calm, steady, reflective. In those first nights, our conversations were simple. We talked about favorite books. He loved poetry, especially Robert Frost. I told him I preferred stories that made me cry, because tears had a way of washing grief clean, even if just for a moment. We shared little details like how he always brewed a cup of peppermint tea before bed, and how I kept a small lamp by my bedside because darkness felt too heavy since my husband passed. We didn't dive into pain right away. It was like we were circling gently around the edges of each other's hearts, testing the waters, slowly learning that neither of us had to be alone in the silence anymore. Some nights I would curl beneath my blanket, phone in hand, and smile at his words. He had a way of writing that felt warm, like he was speaking only to me. His sentences weren't fancy, but they were alive. "The night feels less empty when you're here," he wrote once. I stared at that line for a long time. Nobody had said something like that to me in years, not since my husband. My heart beat a little quicker, and though guilt tried to whisper in my ear, another voice, the softer one, told me it was okay to feel something again. As you listen now, I want you to breathe slowly, in and out. Imagine someone's voice reaching across the night to you, reminding you that you matter, that you are seen, even in the quiet. That's what his words did for me. But with every new message, I felt torn. Part of me still carried the weight of loss, the memory of a love that ended too soon. Another part, one I didn't expect, longed for connection, for the warmth of another human soul who understood pain as I did. One night, when the moon was high and pale outside my window, I confessed it. Daniel, I typed slowly. Sometimes I feel guilty even talking to you like this, as if I'm betraying him somehow. His reply came after a pause, and I imagined him staring at the screen, choosing his words carefully. Emilia, grief doesn't mean you're frozen forever. Love doesn't die, it changes. What you shared with your husband is still with you. Talking to me doesn't erase it. It just means your heart is still alive. I pressed the phone to my chest, tears stinging my eyes. Nobody had put it that way before. I had been carrying guilt like a stone, thinking that healing meant forgetting. But his words gave me permission, not to move on, but to move forward. Nights turned into weeks, and our talks became a rhythm. I would wait for the quiet, for the house to settle, for the night to grow still, and then there he would be. How was your day? He would ask, and I would answer honestly, sometimes admitting the loneliness, sometimes sharing a small victory, like cooking a meal for myself or tending the garden. He told me about his days too. He lived near a lake, which explained his username. He often walked there at sunset, watching the water shimmer with gold. He said it was the only place where his heart didn't feel so heavy. I began to picture him, though I didn't know his face yet. I imagined a man with kind eyes, sitting by the water with his thoughts, sending me messages while the sky turned dark. As you rest now, I want you to imagine it too. A lake at dusk, soft ripples against the shore, a cool breeze carrying the scent of pine, and someone sitting quietly, waiting for you. One evening, he asked me something that made my breath catch. Emilia, can I tell you a secret? I hesitated, smiling a little at the screen. Yes, of course. Some nights when I'm writing to you, I forget that we're strangers. It feels like I've known you longer than I actually have. My fingers trembled as I typed back. I feel the same way. That night, I didn't fall asleep quickly. I lay awake, heart beating, staring at the soft glow of my lamp. Something new was blooming inside me, something fragile but undeniable. I didn't know what it was yet, but I knew it was real. Before I end this chapter, I want you to relax again. Take a slow breath, unclench your jaw, and let your body sink deeper into rest. Remember that it's okay to feel, it's okay to hope, and it's okay to let light in, even after darkness. Healing isn't about replacing what we've lost. It's about learning to hold both love and grief in the same heart, and still choosing to keep going. You are stronger than you think, and every connection, every gentle word, can be a step toward life again. That night, as I drifted into sleep, I realized something. I wanted to hear his voice, not just his words, and that thought both comforted and frightened me. There is something about a voice in the dark. It can wrap around your heart, soften your fears, and remind you that you are not as alone as you once believed. Now, before we begin, take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Relax your shoulders, calm your mind, and if you haven't yet, close your window and lock your door. This story is here to keep you safe, calm, and ready to drift toward peaceful sleep. It had been weeks of messages, of quiet nights spent staring at my screen with a smile I didn't realize I was wearing. Daniel's words had become a part of my evening routine, as natural as brushing my teeth or making tea. But lately, I felt a restlessness, a yearning to hear the sound behind the words. One evening, after a long day of gray skies and steady rain, I found myself typing something I hadn't dared before. Daniel, have you ever thought about us talking, not just writing? For a moment, I almost deleted it. My heart raced, my palms damp with nerves. But before I could take it back, his reply appeared. I have many times. I was just waiting for you to be ready. My breath caught. He had thought of it too. Somehow that felt like both a comfort and a risk. Would you want to? I typed, my hands shaking. The 3 little dots appeared and disappeared again, as if he was taking his time. Then his answer came, yes, but only if you feel safe. Safe, that was the word. With him, I did feel safe. I did feel safe. That night, after a quiet pause, he sent me his number. I stared at it, memorizing the pattern of digits, as if it were a secret code meant only for me. I held my phone, my thumb hovering over the call button, my heart pounding like a drum in the stillness. Finally, I pressed it. The ringing seemed to last forever. Then, hello, his voice, deep, gentle, with a hint of warmth that felt instantly familiar, though I had never heard it before. I froze, my throat dry. It's me, Amelia. A soft chuckle came through the line, low and calming. I know, I'd recognize you even if I hadn't heard your voice before. I smiled, pressing my hand to my chest. His voice was everything I didn't know I needed, steady, soothing, like a hand brushing back the hair from my face. We talked for hours that night. At first, it was small things again. The weather, the sound of rain against my window, the way his lake looked when the moonlight touched it. But soon it became deeper. He told me about his fiancée, how she had been full of life, always laughing, and how losing her felt like the world had gone silent. I listened, my heart aching for him, but also comforted by how freely he shared. When it was my turn, I spoke about my husband. I told him about his smile, the way he used to fix everything around the house, how he made the best Sunday pancakes. My voice trembled, but Daniel didn't interrupt. He just listened, as if my memories mattered as much to him as they did to me. At one point, there was silence on the line, not uncomfortable, but gentle, like we were breathing together across the distance. Amelia, he said quietly, I don't want to overstep, but you have the kind of voice that feels like home. My eyes filled with tears. No one had spoken to me like that in so long. I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me. As you rest tonight, I want you to imagine this moment, lying in bed, phone against your ear, hearing a voice that feels like it belongs in your life. A voice that doesn't demand, doesn't rush, but simply exists, softly, reminding you that you're not alone in the dark. That call became the first of many. Every evening, we would talk until sleep pulled at our words. Sometimes we laughed, sometimes we cried, but always there was a comfort in knowing someone was on the other side of the silence. And slowly, without even realizing it, I began to look forward to each night, not with dread, but with hope. One evening, just as we were about to hang up, he whispered something that stayed with me long after the call ended. Amelia, do you ever wonder if maybe this is the beginning of something new? My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know how to answer. The line was quiet, both of us holding our breath. Yes, I whispered at last. I do. Before I let you drift deeper into rest, I want you to let that thought linger, the possibility of something new, even after so much loss. Healing doesn't erase the past, it simply opens the door for the future to step in. Remember this: your voice matters, your story matters, and even in the darkest hours, someone may be waiting to listen. Never be afraid to let your heart speak. That night, as I ended the call, I knew something had shifted. This wasn't just healing anymore. Something warmer, brighter, and more dangerous was stirring between us, and I found myself wondering what would happen if we met in person. The heart always knows when it is ready to step out of the shadows. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it trembles, but always it longs for more than silence. Before we begin, take a moment, breathe in deeply, and let it go. Relax your body into the bed, soften your jaw, and allow the day to melt away. If your window is still open or your door not locked, take a moment to do that now. Tonight, this story is here to keep you safe and calm as you drift toward rest. It had been almost a month since Daniel and I started speaking on the phone, and every night felt like a thread weaving something delicate between us. Our voices had grown familiar, soft companions to each other's solitude, but with each call, something inside me stirred more deeply. Words were no longer enough. I wanted to see him, not just hear him. I wanted to know if the warmth I felt through a phone line would still be there in person, in the space between two hearts standing close. The thought scared me. Meeting meant stepping out of the safe cocoon we had built with words and whispers. Meeting meant risking disappointment, or worse, the loss of what we already had. Still, the thought lingered. One evening, as the sky outside my window turned velvet with stars, we were talking about nothing and everything at once. He was sitting by his lake again, he told me, listening to the water move gently in the night breeze. "Amelia," he said after a pause, "can I ask you something?" My heart skipped. "Of course. Do you ever wonder what it would be like if we met?" The silence that followed was not empty. It was full, alive with unspoken questions. I sat up in bed, my fingers clutching the blanket. "Yes," I whispered, "I do wonder." I could almost hear the smile in his voice. "I think about it more than I should." For the next few minutes, we danced around the subject like shy children. He asked if I would feel safe meeting him. I admitted that part of me longed for it, while another part was afraid. "I don't want to push you," he said gently. "We don't have to rush, but if the time ever feels right, I would be honored to see you face to face." His words wrapped around me like a blanket. There was no pressure, no demand, just an open door waiting for me to step through if and when I was ready. As you listen now, let yourself imagine it too. Picture the stillness of a night sky, stars scattered like diamonds, and two voices on opposite ends of the line, both wondering what it would mean to meet. Let your breathing slow, your thoughts quiet, as you drift in that gentle possibility. The days after that conversation felt different. I carried his voice with me everywhere, while folding laundry, while walking through the grocery store, even while brushing my teeth. The idea of seeing him in person had taken root in my mind, and it wouldn't let go. At night, our conversations deepened. We began to share dreams, not just memories. He told me he wanted to build a cabin one day, overlooking the water, a place filled with books and warmth. I told him I dreamed of painting again, something I had abandoned after my husband passed. He encouraged me. You should, you should. Art isn't about perfection, it's about breathing on canvas. You deserve that. His words lit a fire inside me. Next morning, I dug out my old paints from the attic, brushing dust off the lids. Next morning, the smell of dried acrylic filled the room, and for the first time in years, I set up a canvas by the window. As I painted soft strokes of blue and gray, I thought of him, of the lake, of his steady voice, of the possibility of something new. One night, after another long call, he grew quiet before saying, "Amelia, may I tell you something?" "Anything," I replied softly. "I'm afraid too, afraid of losing what we have if we try to meet. But I also know I've never felt this close to anyone since she passed, and I don't want to hide behind fear forever." His honesty unraveled me. Tears spilled silently down my cheeks. I whispered, "I don't want to hide either. As you lie here now, close your eyes and let that thought rest with you. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is allow hope to bloom again, even if it trembles, even if it scares us." We didn't set a date yet, not then, but we promised each other that when the time felt right, we would find a way. And in that promise, there was something powerful, not just longing, but trust. Trust that grief had not destroyed us. Trust that healing could lead us somewhere new. Healing isn't about forgetting the past. It's about opening your heart to tomorrow. Even when fear whispers that you should stay closed, every step toward hope is a victory. To every moment of courage brings you closer to life again. That night, as I hung up the phone, I stood by my window, looking at the stars. Next morning, for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone beneath them. I felt as though somewhere, by a quiet lake, another soul was looking up at the same sky, wondering the same thing, and deep inside, I knew soon we would meet. There comes a moment when words are no longer enough, when the heart longs to step out of the quiet and see if the person on the other side of the voice is real. Before we begin, take a slow breath. Let your shoulders sink, unclench your hands, and allow your body to soften into rest. If your window is still open or your door not locked, take a moment now to close them. This story is here to hold you, to ease you, and to guide you gently towards sleep. It had been weeks since the question of meeting first lingered between us, and the thought had only grown stronger. Every night, I imagined what it would be like to see Daniel, to stand across from him, to hear his voice not through a phone, but carried by the air between us. Finally, one evening, as we spoke in our usual way, the conversation turned once more to the possibility. "Amelia," he said softly, "I think I'm ready. I think we both are." My heart raced, yet my voice was calm. Where would we meet? Silence stretched gently between us, like a thread holding its breath. Then he said, "There's a cafe near the lake. Simple, quiet. They have tables outside where you can see the water. I go there often. Would you come?" I closed my eyes, picturing it. The lake, the still water, the sound of birds, the scent of coffee, and him waiting. "Yes," I whispered. "I'll come." The days leading up to that meeting felt like a dream. I moved through my routines, grocery shopping, folding clothes, watering the plants. But underneath everything was the knowledge that something extraordinary was waiting. At night, I lay awake, imagining every possibility. Would I recognize him right away? Would his smile feel familiar? Would the warmth of his words translate into the presence of his eyes, his hands, his heart? Fear came too, whispering doubts. What if reality didn't match the comfort of distance? What if meeting shattered the fragile magic we had built? But each time doubt rose, his voice echoed in my memory. Love doesn't die, it changes. What you shared with your husband is still with you. Talking to me doesn't erase it. It just means your heart is still alive. Those words steadied me. The morning of the meeting, I woke earlier than usual. Sunlight spilled through my curtains, painting the room in gold. My stomach fluttered with nerves as I chose what to wear. A soft blue dress, simple, comfortable, not too much. I wanted to feel like myself, nothing more, nothing less. I drove to the cafe slowly, my hands gripping the wheel, my heart pounding. The closer I came to the lake, the more the air seemed to change, quieter, softer, touched by the scent of pine and water. When I pulled into the parking lot, I sat for a moment, gathering courage. The lake shimmered in the distance, sunlight dancing across its surface, and then I saw him. He was already there, sitting at one of the outdoor tables, a cup of coffee in his hand. He wore a simple gray sweater, and though I had never seen his face before, I knew instantly it was him. As I walked toward him, everything else faded. The sound of cars, the chatter of others, even the pounding of my heart. He looked up, and our eyes met. In that moment, I felt it. Recognition, not of his features, but of his soul. It was as though the months of words and whispers had carved a space inside me, and now he was stepping into it. "Amelia," he said, standing slowly. "Yes," I whispered. We stood there for a breathless moment, not rushing, not speaking, just seeing each other. And then he smiled, a gentle, knowing smile that felt like home. We sat together, our words tentative at first, like stepping onto new ground. His voice in person was deeper, warmer, touched with pauses that made me lean closer. He asked if I was nervous, and I admitted I was. He smiled again, saying, "So am I. But it feels right, doesn't it?" It did. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing, the lake, the cafe, the way the sunlight looked on the water. It was ordinary and extraordinary all at once, as though the world had shifted slightly to make space for us. At one point, a breeze lifted, carrying the scent of pine needles and coffee. He reached across the table, not to hold my hand, but simply to let his fingers rest closer to mine. The gesture was small, but it was enough. My heart steadied. As you rest tonight, let yourself imagine this scene sitting across from someone who sees you, truly sees you. The water shimmering behind them, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the comfort of a smile that tells you you are not alone. When the afternoon light began to soften, we walked together by the lake. The path was quiet, lined with trees. At times, our arms brushed lightly, sending sparks through my skin. Finally, we paused by the water's edge. He looked at me with eyes that carried both sorrow and hope, and he said softly, "Amelia, I don't know what this is yet, but I know it matters." I swallowed the lump in my throat. I feel the same. And in the stillness, we stood together, two souls who had once been broken, daring to believe in something new. Remember this, every new beginning is born from a choice to be brave. Fear will always whisper, but courage speaks louder when the heart is ready. You too are capable of opening your heart again, no matter how heavy the past has been. As the sun began to set over the water, painting the lake in shades of orange and gold, I realized this was only the beginning. And I wondered what would happen when the quiet of night returned, and we were left with the question neither of us dared to voice aloud: was this love? Some stories don't arrive with fireworks. They arrive like dawn, soft, patient, and steady, painting the world in quiet colors until you realize everything has changed. Before we begin, take a long breath in and let it out slowly. Feel the weight of the day drift from your shoulders. If you haven't yet, close your curtains, lock your door, and let yourself sink into this safe space. The night after meeting Daniel, I couldn't sleep. My body lay still, but my mind wandered back to the lake, to the way the sunlight caught in his hair, to the steadiness of his gaze. I replayed every moment, the first smile, the pauses in our conversation, the almost touch of his hand near mine. I had expected to feel nervous or unsettled after seeing him, but instead I felt calm, as if something within me had settled into place, a piece of a puzzle I hadn't realized was missing. And yet, beneath that calm was a quiet fear. What if it was only the magic of the first meeting? What if tomorrow the comfort would fade? The next evening, I found myself waiting for his call, wondering if he felt the same uncertainty. When his name appeared on my screen, relief washed over me. "Amelia," he said, his voice warm. "I haven't stopped thinking about today." I laughed softly. "Neither have I." We spoke for hours again, but this time there was something different. The distance between us, though still real, felt smaller. He told me about the books he loved, the way he used to fish by that same lake as a boy. I shared stories of my husband, the silly little moments that still made me smile. And Daniel listened, never rushing, never pulling away. At one point, I grew quiet, lost in thought. "Do you think it's wrong?" I asked, "to feel this way, to find comfort in you, when my heart still belongs partly to him?" There was silence on the line, but not the kind that frightened me. Instead, it felt like he was weighing each word carefully before answering. Finally, he said, "I don't think love is a fixed thing, Amelia. I think it's like the lake. It holds what it can, it reflects what's above, and it changes with the seasons. You're not betraying your past, you're honoring the fact that you're still alive." His words wrapped around me like a blanket. Over the days that followed, we began to weave each other into the fabric of our lives. He would send me pictures of the lake when the sunrise painted it pink. I would text him little notes about the garden I was planting, the way the roses were beginning to bloom. It wasn't grand or dramatic. It was gentle, simple, real, and in that gentleness, something inside me began to heal. One Sunday afternoon, Daniel asked if I wanted to meet again, not at the cafe this time, but for a walk along one of the trails by the lake. I hesitated, my heart leaping and trembling all at once. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Yes," he said, his voice steady. "Only if you want to, of course." I did want to, more than I admitted to myself. The trail was shaded, lined with tall pines and wild flowers. When I arrived, Daniel was waiting, hands in his pockets, that familiar smile tugging at his lips. "Hi," I said softly, my voice trembling just a little. "Hi," he replied. We began to walk, our steps unhurried, the sound of the lake nearby. At first, we spoke of light things, the way the air smelled of pine, the brightness of the wildflowers, the calls of birds overhead. But slowly, our words deepened, sinking into the unspoken parts of us. At one point, Daniel paused, his eyes meeting mine. "Amelia," he said gently, "you don't have to give me an answer. Not now, maybe not ever. But I need you to know, I care about you. Truly." My breath caught, the honesty in his voice, the quiet steadiness. It was unlike anything I had heard since losing my husband. I swallowed hard, my eyes stinging. "I care about you too," I whispered. For a moment, we simply stood there, the wind rustling the trees around us, the lake shimmering just beyond. He didn't reach for me, and I didn't step closer, but the space between us shifted, filling with something fragile and beautiful. Sometimes love doesn't come with thunder. Sometimes it arrives with whispers, with steady footsteps, with the courage to simply be present. Healing is not about replacing what was lost. It's about allowing your heart to remember how to open again. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something quietly astonishing. I wasn't afraid anymore, not of memory, not of tomorrow, not of feeling again. And as I drifted into sleep, I found myself wondering, when love arrives so gently, could it be strong enough to last? Some stories don't arrive with fireworks. They arrive like dawn, soft, patient, and steady, painting the world in quiet colors until you realize everything has changed. Before we begin, take a long breath in and let it out slowly. Feel the weight of the day drift from your shoulders. If you haven't yet, close your curtains, lock your door, and let yourself sink into this safe space. The night after meeting Daniel, I couldn't sleep. My body lay still, but my mind wandered back to the lake, to the way the sunlight caught in his hair, to the steadiness of his gaze. I replayed every moment, the first smile, the pauses in our conversation, the almost touch of his hand near mine. I had expected to feel nervous or unsettled after seeing him, but instead I felt calm, as if something within me had settled into place, a piece of a puzzle I hadn't realized was missing. And yet, beneath that calm was a quiet fear. What if it was only the magic of the first meeting? What if tomorrow the comfort would fade? The next evening, I found myself waiting for his call, wondering if he felt the same uncertainty. When his name appeared on my screen, relief washed over me. "Amelia," he said, his voice warm. "I haven't stopped thinking about today." I laughed softly. "Neither have I." We spoke for hours again, but this time there was something different. The distance between us, though still real, felt smaller. He told me about the books he loved, the way he used to fish by that same lake as a boy. I shared stories of my husband, the silly little moments that still made me smile. And Daniel listened, never rushing, never pulling away. At one point, I grew quiet, lost in thought. "Do you think it's wrong," I asked, "to feel this way, to find comfort in you, when my heart still belongs partly to him?" There was silence on the line, but not the kind that frightened me. Instead, it felt like he was weighing each word carefully before answering. Finally, he said, "I don't think love is a fixed thing, Amelia. I think it's like the lake. It holds what it can, it reflects what's above, and it changes with the seasons. You're not betraying your past. You're honoring the fact that you're still alive." His words wrapped around me like a blanket. Over the days that followed, we began to weave each other into the fabric of our lives. He would send me pictures of the lake when the sunrise painted it pink. I would text him little notes about the garden I was planting, the way the roses were beginning to bloom. It wasn't grand or dramatic. It was gentle, simple, real. And in that gentleness, something inside me began to heal. One Sunday afternoon, Daniel asked if I wanted to meet again, not at the cafe this time, but for a walk along one of the trails by the lake. I hesitated, my heart leaping and trembling all at once. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Yes," he said, his voice steady. "Only if you want to, of course." I did want to. More than I admitted to myself. The trail was shaded, lined with tall pines and wildflowers. When I arrived, Daniel was waiting, hands in his pockets, that familiar smile tugging at his lips. "Hi," I said softly, my voice trembling just a little. "Hi," he replied. We began to walk, our steps unhurried, the sound of the lake nearby. At first, we spoke of light things, the way the air smelled of pine, the brightness of the wildflowers, the calls of birds overhead. But slowly our words deepened, sinking into the unspoken parts of us. At one point, Daniel paused, his eyes meeting mine. "Amelia," he said gently, "you don't have to give me an answer. Not now, maybe not ever. But I need you to know I care about you, truly." My breath caught, the honesty in his voice, the quiet steadiness. It was unlike anything I had heard since losing my husband. I swallowed hard, my eyes stinging. "I care about you too," I whispered. For a moment, we simply stood there, the wind rustling the trees around us, the lake shimmering just beyond. He didn't reach for me, and I didn't step closer, but the space between us shifted, filling with something fragile and beautiful. Sometimes love doesn't come with thunder. Sometimes it arrives with whispers, with steady footsteps, with the courage to simply be present. Healing is not about replacing what was lost. It's about allowing your heart to remember how to open again. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something quietly astonishing. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of memory, not of tomorrow, not of feeling again. And as I drifted into sleep, I found myself wondering, when love arrives so gently, could it be strong enough to last? Sometimes love doesn't arrive in grand gestures. It comes in the brush of a hand, in the pause before a word, in the quiet space where two hearts dare to meet. Before we begin, take a long breath in and let it out slowly. Feel your body growing heavier, your thoughts softening. If your window is still open, close it now. If your door is unlocked, take a moment to secure it. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. You deserve rest. The days after the picnic felt like a new chapter, gentle, but charged with something I couldn't ignore. When Daniel's name lit up my phone, my heart beat a little faster. When his voice filled the quiet of my evenings, I felt less alone. We were no longer pretending this was just friendship. We hadn't spoken of love yet, but the truth lingered in every word, every pause. One evening, as twilight deepened outside my window, Daniel asked if I would meet him again. This time not at the lake, but at a small bookshop in town. "It's quiet there," he said, his voice warm. "I think you'll like it." The shop was tucked between two brick buildings, its windows glowing softly against the dusk. Inside, the air smelled of paper and ink, with rows of shelves stretching like gentle guardians. Daniel was already there, standing near a shelf lined with poetry. When he saw me, his face lit up in a smile that made my breath catch. "You came," he said. "Of course I did," I whispered. We wandered through the aisles together, fingers brushing the spines of books, pausing to share passages that caught our eye. There was something intimate about the quiet, about the way our voices lowered as if the words themselves were sacred. At one point, Daniel handed me a book of poems, his fingers brushing mine. The touch was barely there, light as air, but it sent a tremor through me. I looked up, and his eyes met mine, steady and searching. For a moment, neither of us moved. The world outside faded, the hum of traffic, the passing footsteps, even the soft music playing in the shop. It was just him and me, standing in the quiet, caught in something fragile and infinite. "Amelia," he said softly, almost as if afraid of breaking the moment. "Can I?" I didn't let him finish. I nodded, my throat too tight for words. His hand lifted slowly, giving me every chance to step back, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned into the warmth of his touch as his fingers brushed my cheek, feather-light, reverent. It wasn't a kiss, not yet. It was something gentler, something more powerful. The first touch that said, "I see you, I honor you, I care for you." My eyes stung with tears, but I smiled. I'd forgotten what this felt like. I whispered. Daniel's gaze softened, his thumb brushing away the tear that slipped free. "Then let me help you remember. We didn't rush, we didn't need to. Instead, we sat together in a quiet corner of the shop, sharing passages from the book of poems, our shoulders barely touching, and yet, that slight closeness was enough. It spoke louder than words." When it was time to leave, Daniel walked me to my car. The night was cool, the air filled with the scent of pine and rain. For a long moment, we stood there, neither wanting to part. "I don't want to say goodnight," I admitted softly. "Then don't," he replied, his voice low, but we both knew we had to. So instead of goodbye, he simply took my hand, fully this time, fingers entwining with mine. And though it was such a small thing, it felt like a promise. That night, lying in bed, I touched my cheek where his hand had rested. The warmth lingered, as though it had etched itself into my skin. And for the first time in years, I didn't just dream of the past. I dreamed of what might still be waiting for me. Sometimes healing begins not with a leap, but with the gentlest of steps. A hand held, a soft word, a quiet look that says you are not alone. Don't underestimate the power of small beginnings. They often hold the strength to change everything. As sleep pulled me into its arms, I held on to one simple truth. Love doesn't always rush in. Sometimes it unfolds slowly, beautifully, like a flower opening to the sun. Love often waits at the edge of fear, asking if we are brave enough to step forward. And with Daniel, I found myself standing at that edge, trembling but unwilling to walk away. Before we begin, breathe in deeply and release it slowly. Let your chest grow light. Let your thoughts settle like leaves drifting on water. If your window is still open, close it gently. If your door is unlocked, turn the key. You deserve to feel safe, calm, and at rest as you listen. The days after Daniel first held my hand felt like a dream, both tender and uncertain. Every message from him carried warmth, but beneath that warmth was a question neither of us had yet spoken aloud. Were we ready? One evening, he called me just as the sun was sinking, the sky painted in gold and rose. "Amelia," he said softly, "I'd like to see you again, just you and me at the lake, tomorrow evening. No books, no cafe, just us." His voice trembled slightly, and that tremor echoed in my own heart. "Yes," I whispered, "I'll be there." The next evening, I dressed simply, jeans, a light sweater, but my hands shook as I smoothed my hair. This wasn't just another meeting. Was Hajeta en Yushing. This felt like a step into something deeper, something that could change everything. The lake was quiet when I arrived, the water reflecting the soft glow of twilight. Daniel was waiting, his hands tucked into his pockets, his expression unreadable until he saw me. Then his face softened, and all the nervousness in me eased. "You came," he said, his voice filled with something I couldn't quite name. "I told you I would," I replied. We walked along the shore, our words light at first, skimming the surface of safer things, the coolness of the evening air, the way the light danced on the water. But as the minutes passed, Silence stretched between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, Daniel stopped. He turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "Amelia," he said, his voice low, "I don't want to pretend anymore. I care about you more than I ever thought I could. And I know it's complicated. I know it's fragile. But I need you to know." My breath caught, tears stinging my eyes. I had known, of course. In every look, in every word, I had felt it. But hearing it aloud was something different. "I care about you too," I whispered. "But I'm afraid, Daniel. Afraid of moving too fast, of dishonoring what I had before." His gaze softened, and he stepped closer, though not too close. "Loving again doesn't erase the love you had. It doesn't replace it. It simply adds to it. Your past will always be yours, but maybe your future can be ours." The words sank into me like sunlight after a long winter. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to let go of the fear that still clung to me like a shadow. And in that moment, standing by the lake with the water shimmering behind him, I realized I had a choice. I stepped closer, closing the small distance between us. My hand found his, trembling but steady enough. His fingers curled around mine, warm and sure. "Daniel," I said softly, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I want this. I want you." His breath shuddered, and in his eyes I saw relief, hope, and something deeper, something that mirrored the ache in my own heart. He lifted his other hand slowly, brushing a strand of hair from my face, and then with infinite gentleness, he leaned in. The kiss was not urgent, not rushed. It was soft, reverent, a question as much as an answer. My heart ached and bloomed all at once. When we finally pulled back, the world felt different, brighter, lighter. Daniel pressed his forehead to mine. "We'll take it slow," he whispered. "No rushing, no pressure, just us, one step at a time." And for the first time, I believed it was possible. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward in spite of it. Love, too, is not about forgetting what came before, but about opening your heart to what comes next. That night, as I drifted into sleep, I carried with me the memory of Daniel's kiss, the gentlest turning point of my life. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, I knew this. I was no longer walking it alone. Every ending carries the seed of a beginning, and in Daniel's arms, I discovered that healing was not about forgetting, but about learning to love again beneath a softer sky. Before we begin, take one last deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and let it go. Feel the weight of the day melting from your shoulders. If your curtains are open, close them. If your door is unlocked, turn the key. Tonight is for safety, for peace, for rest. Weeks turned into months, and slowly Daniel and I wove our lives together, not with grand declarations, but with quiet gestures, morning texts, shared walks, evenings spent reading side by side. It wasn't perfect. There were days when grief still pulled me under, when memories of my husband made me retreat into silence. But Daniel never tried to erase those moments. He honored them. He honored him, and in doing so, he honored me. One afternoon, as we sat by the lake, I told him something I hadn't told anyone before. I used to think my heart was a house with only one room, I confessed, staring at the ripples on the water. And when I lost him, that room collapsed. I didn't think I could ever rebuild it. Daniel reached for my hand, his thumb brushing softly against my skin. "Maybe hearts aren't houses, Amelia. Maybe they're skies. vast enough to hold more than one sun, more than one storm, vast enough for what was and what is. His words sank deep, like stones settling into still water. For the first time, I realized he was right. My love for my husband would always be part of me, but my love for Daniel could live beside it, not replacing, not diminishing, but expanding the space within me. That evening, as the sun set, Daniel pulled me close. "I don't know what the future holds," he said softly, "but I want to walk it with you, one step, one breath, one quiet hour at a time." I looked at him, at the steadiness in his eyes, at the warmth that had become my anchor, and I knew my answer. "Yes," I whispered, "with you." Our kiss that night was different from the first. It wasn't tentative, it wasn't afraid, it was steady, certain, a promise written in the language of hearts that had chosen to heal together. In the months that followed, I found myself living differently. I planted roses that bloomed brighter than before. I laughed more often. I let myself dream again, and in every dream, Daniel was there, not as a replacement, but as a new chapter. I had once believed my story had ended, but now I understood that stories don't end with loss. They change, they bend, they open new doors, and in the quiet hours of night, when sleep drew near, I no longer whispered goodbyes to the past. Instead, I whispered thank yous. Thank you for what was. Thank you for what is. Thank you for what will be. Remember this. Healing does not mean forgetting. It means growing wide enough to carry both memory and possibility, sorrow and joy, love that was, and love that is. Life will always ask us to begin again, and we are braver than we think. So as you close your eyes tonight, know this: your heart is vast enough for the past, vast enough for the present, vast enough for every quiet hour still waiting for you. Sleep well, dear listener. Tomorrow is a new dawn.